Anyways, I'm really excited because welcoming to BraveWords Streaming for Vengeance is Jon Hardy from this band, the bizarrely titled but beautifully named Mexican Ape-Lord.
Wahoo!
Nice, nice. Dude, I honestly, I listen to this all the time. I'm such a fan. You know, Tony and I go way back, so there's lots of questions for you. But you know what? Can I bring up something a little morbid? And yes, it is Canada Day. It is Canada Day. So cheers to that. The last time, and I don't want me to set up on the wrong foot, but remember where you were when JFK died, or you know what I mean, when John
Yeah,
Lennon got shot? The last time I spoke to you was when
yeah.
Eddie Van Halen died, which I
And
found,
it happened during our conversation.
which I never happens to me. Like nobody dies during my conversation.
And I felt like that's probably going to spoil our friendship right there when that happens.
No.
But then I was like, you know what? He'll forget all about it in a couple years, but I see you haven't. It's the first thing you mentioned.
Twisting that
I'm,
night.
I told you at the time, I had nothing to do with that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Eddie's death. Yeah, that was a terrible thing. But I feel like we have a little bit of a connection because we were together when the news came in.
I still think those shockwaves are still like rippling
Oh,
around the world, right? Forever they will.
absolutely. Yeah. And they seem to, we're at a time now where we're losing really important people almost on a weekly basis. So those waves are just turning into feels like a tsunami sometimes.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I've been a huge fan. You know, Tony and I go way back. It's really funny because he found out about this Canadian that was a huge Meliah Rage fan, and it ended up to be me. We're talking like 25 years ago or whatever. So I've
Yeah.
got a long history. I'm a huge fan. I know they were on Epic for a couple of records. They should be they're just one of those bands where they should be larger than life, and now they kind of just flooded away. But it's a huge inspiration. And now, even with this weirdly named side project, let's talk about. I've known you guys. It's not like this band. This is like the first record, but tell people about Mexican Ape-Lord and that relationship that you have with Tony, because you kind of come from a different world. You're not coming from the speed thrash world where he came from.
Yeah, that's right. Musically, that's true. Although, we went to high school together,
Right.
Tony and I. So I've known him for a really long time. And when Meliah Rage was starting up in Boston in the sort of early mid '80s, and my band, The Bags, was starting up as well, more of a punk leaning band. We practiced in the same complex.
Okay.
So we knew each other growing up in Lexington, Mass. And then we knew each other in Boston when our bands were getting going. And I was around when Meliah Rage got signed, and man, Tony was so psyched. They were going to conquer the world. So number of years go by, and the Bags, we went through our period and stopped making records and moved on to other things. And that happened with Meliah Rage as well. I got a call out of the blue from Tony early 2000s, and he said, like, hey man, let's start up a side project. He didn't say like let's start a band. It was an album project. Let's just make a record together. And I was so busy at the time raising a family and working that I was just like, I don't think so, Tony. Like, thanks for asking. But he didn't go away. He kept calling me, like every week he would call. And you probably know this about him too. He's a very persuasive guy. Um,
Mentally and physically.
he's a big guy. He can be physically intimidating, but also he's got a great sort of he knows how to sprinkle sugar on everything too. So he eventually got through to me, and he sent me some files, demos that he'd made. And once I heard them, I couldn't say no because the riffs were just so great, so strange, and just got started. Just got started writing words and melodies to his demos, and before you knew it, we had a record, and then we made another one, and another one, and another one.
Yeah. and a great
So
EP as well.
yeah, thank you.
Oh, I I got a million questions for you because I really have not stopped listening to this stuff for a long time. And I think he's a really truly underrated guitar player. I just love his just everything about the way his style is, rhythm and lead. How
Yeah.
but your voice really like it just takes it to another level. How did, when you started to hear those riffs, where did you think in your mind, how am I going to sing to these riffs?
Yes, good question because I'm not used to writing that way. I've never written that way before. Previously, I would just sit, I'm a bass player, so I would just sit down with a bass and you're usually writing a riff or around a chord progression. And and now I had these basically full songs, complicated too, strange timing, uh, unusual chords, voicings. Um, and how did I approach it? At first, when you hear this stuff, these demos, they come across as kind of abstract. So I need to spend some time living with the music, living with Tony's demo, which is this is the way we've made all these records. Tony makes a demo of a song, which is generally rhythm guitar, maybe a couple different rhythm parts, um, and a drum machine, or maybe even just like a click track. It's very rudimentary, and so I just live with that for a while, for a few days, maybe a couple of weeks. I feel it's almost like you're just sort of you're flying over the scene below and surveying it, trying to get the lay of the land. And then as it starts to make sense, I'll just dive down and start picking up threads.
Now, he showed me a long time ago, and this is like I almost like passed out, his injury when he
Oh,
fell.
man.
And
You've
like,
seen the X-ray.
well, he showed me his hand. I don't, maybe I should be saying that out loud. And was like, dude, like you should be fucking dead. Like this, despite the
Yeah,
fact you playing the guitar
yeah,
ever again. But as I say, he's in my head, he's kind of like a Hetfield, a Malcolm Young. Like he's just got those really strong rhythms. And I've always said to him, I love the South of Heaven moments in Mexican Ape-Lord because I love stuff like Worm Moon off the new record. You know what I mean? These haunting, you know what I mean? Dereliction and Keep Hammering. It's just like so moving and so it's not like, you know what I mean? It's not Angel of Death, it's South of
yeah.
Heaven.
That's right. And he can do that stuff and sometimes does. I think that he's with each record, he's trying to put forward a sort of a mix of moods, tempos, and there are like major chords on this record, which is a little bit unusual for this style of music. Um, yeah, it always blows me away when I get new stuff to listen to from Tony. A lot of it I feel like would stand up as just instrumental tracks, you know. Not to mention the fact that our lead guitar player and drummer are just amazing musicians.
Right,
Um,
exactly.
Oftentimes I feel like I, I mean I feel like I know what I'm doing. It's not like I lack confidence as a songwriter, but if I were given the option to just get out of the way, I probably would on some of these songs. Let's just let it be an instrumental, guys. It's so great. I want to hear every every detail of the drums, you know. I don't want to sing over that, but that's my job, so, I'll just suck it up.
I've never actually, I know exactly what you're saying, but I don't think I've had anyone in all my millions of interviews explain it like that. Why ruin the song with my voice?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you get tired of hearing your own voice, right? Everybody hates the sound of their voice. And
Alfred says that in his book that he hates listening to him. I'm like, dude, you're like
yeah.
the king.
I think it's almost universal. There's something about they say that the way your voice sounds is different. The way that you hear your voice is different because you're hearing it through your skull, you know. So everyone feels like they have this deep, boomy voice. But when you hear a recording of your voice, it's like, whoa, that's
Yeah.
not me.
You coming from like a more of a hardcore punky roots, how did you want to sing? It's obviously this is more of a metal thing than a punk thing, right? So how did you approach it needing to sing less punk but more metal?
Yeah. I I I asked Tony for some advice about that. And that was part of my hesitation in joining the band,
Sure.
really, was that I just, I know how to be in a punk band. Um, but I've never been a singer in a metal band before.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
that's a bit tough. And Tony just said, dude, you're an outsider. Just embrace it. Just be an outsider. I'm like, well, there's nothing more rock than that,
Right.
you know? No matter how big you become in this world, if you like this type of music, brother, you're a bit of an outsider.
Absolutely.
And I think
Outsider since I was yay big.
yeah, exactly. Like all of us have this experience of growing up and being kind of, not quite dead center in the mainstream with our musical tastes.
Right.
So yeah, I can play the role of an outsider.
Just a quick aside, I will always recall sitting in my high school on the floor with my little Walkman, listening to Kill 'Em All. No one had a fucking clue who Metallica was. And I'm like just banging my head in my own little world. People are like, what the fuck is this guy on? Meanwhile, they're the biggest band on the planet now. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, if you had known then what you know now,
I should have invested in them.
yeah.
Now, you need to give yourself more credit because you are crafty. You should be writing series for Netflix because someone told me that even survival cannibalism, there's a hidden meaning behind that album. And it means there's a story there, but there's a side story. I don't know what you call it, if it's a satire or what, you know what I mean? There's a hidden message. You're back masking.
If there is, I don't know what it is. I've forgotten.
Okay, okay.
Um, I mean, I don't think there was a deliberate I don't think it was written to be sort of like a deliberate metaphor. But what you find when you're talking about historical stuff is that it often does work in the present day. You know, the conflicts, the solutions, those are just, history repeats.
But that was a really brutal concept album.
Oh man.
And the
Yeah.
fact that it actually happened, it's not like you dreamed this up. Like that's what's even more horrific. Like this
I,
actually really happened. Imagine
yeah.
being in those boots.
Yeah, and the real story is way harder than this little musical interlude that we made to go along with it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, we have like happy and glorious moments on our record. Those guys suffered.
Now, in the state of our world, not to get really negative, we live in a pretty nasty world right now. So there's really no shortage of lyrical fodder if you want to make a really nasty heavy metal record, right? You don't even
Yeah,
have to go backwards. You just have to look in the paper today,
that's right. Yeah.
which is
Uh,
really terribly sad, obviously.
Plenty of source material out there. Um, yeah, and I feel like I'm uh, kind of a cynical songwriter. Um,
That was better than satire. Cynical was the word I was looking for.
yeah, and I mean, it's not like I mean, I take no pleasure in being a downer. I don't feel like I'm a cynical person, especially when it comes to music. Um, and writing songs in a band like that, that's a totally joyful experience. Um, it's one of the greatest things, actually. Uh, it, and yet, sometimes the actual product can seem cynical. I I don't really know how to resolve that. Um,
Well, you know what's cynical is like how simple and keep it simple, stupid this is. Blunt instrument. Where do you begin, right?
yeah,
By the way, I'm a black and red. BraveWords is black and red, but this artwork is just fucking killer.
It's
And
killer, isn't it?
beautiful.
Yeah, it
Yes.
looks good.
Yeah. Yeah.
They did a great job with that.
And I'm a CD guy too. So
I'll take credit for wanting there to be a shovel on there. That was my only involvement. Like, what's the art going to look like? I said, let's put a shovel on there, and then they came back with that shovel, which is a really great.
yeah, amazing.
It's a gnarly looking shovel.
Now speaking of keep it simple, stupid. I didn't want to really segue in a cheesy way like this. This is kind of like Kiss's Unmasked because you guys finally are showing your faces on a record. This is your Kiss Unmasked.
Yeah, why would anyone want to see that? I don't get it. Like, why did we put our faces on the record? Hello, record label. Come on.
Was it always meant to be kind of like this mysterious Buharia kind of thing where you're wearing a mask and nobody knows who the hell this band is?
Well, I'm not sure if that was deliberate, but right now, Tony and I both live in Massachusetts. Dan, the lead guitar player, is in Florida, and Steve, the drummer, is in Texas. So we're really spread out, and so it's hard to get a band shot.
Yeah, right. Of course. Yeah.
I mean, we get together as a group of four, once every couple of years. So, it was easy to make a record during COVID because that's just the way it worked.
Right. Right.
So I think that's as close as you're going to get to a band shot.
I just want to step back real fast about lyrics and how dark things are. Tom from Slayer, it's a quote he gave me years ago, and he said, Tim, we've all lived on this planet for thousands of years, but we still can't fucking get along.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we get along. I think we get along in small groups generally, right? Maybe it's just that we were evolved as a species to be tribal, and there's kind of like a perfect sort of, family plus maybe another 5 or 6 families. Like you get a group of humans that's, I don't know, 30 to 40 people. They can do a lot together.
Right.
The problem is there's another group like that on the other side of the lake. And they want what we have, and we want what they have.
Yeah. There's a lot of mental health in some of your lyrics as well, right?
Oh yeah. I think the new record, there's a lot of there are a couple of things that seem to go through most of the songs, and psychosis is one of them. There are a lot of disturbed characters in our songs.
Do you think COVID had a really big impact on all of our mental state?
Well, yeah, I'm sure it did. I was kind of lucky. I have a bakery. That's my professional line, and just a small retail bakery, an artisan bakery in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And it's just my wife and myself. And during COVID, we didn't have to shut down. We were able to keep going in and working every day. In fact, we got really busy because people needed to eat.
Sure.
And we had access to things like paper towels and toilet paper through our distributors, through our food and restaurant distributors. So we were like selling toilet paper at cost through the whole ugly COVID experience. It was difficult, but we got to see people every day, like lots of people. So we kept the whole social thing happening for ourselves. I didn't feel like I suffered from any kind of isolation, but most people clearly did. And a lot of musicians did. A lot of professional musicians who all of a sudden, they couldn't practice, they couldn't gig, really suffered.
Yeah, but that's far behind us now, thank God.
Yeah, why are we still talking about it?
Yeah, exactly.
We'll be talking about it in 10 years.
My apologies. My apologies.
It's okay. Hey, It's good. You gotta keep rehashing it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. We can only learn from our mistakes, right?
Yeah.
I do this fun thing in interviews. It's called the BraveWords Rapid Fire.
Oh
Okay.
shit.
Were you much of a metalhead growing up in the 70s and 80s? Would you consider yourself like a big
Not
fan of
no,
that era?
no, I wouldn't. Although like I think I started buying records in the mid 70s, and I don't feel like metal really was even it existed as a style, but I don't think it had that been given that name yet. So I listened to a lot of Deep Purple when I was a kid,
Okay.
and um, and they were a hard rock band. When they went through that transition, the sort of Mark II to Mark III, I think you saw in a way almost like the birth of metal right there.
Right.
Um, so I did like a lot of bands that fall under the metal umbrella. I love Black Sabbath um, in the early 70s. Um, but I liked a lot of different, I liked a lot of prog. Um, I loved when I was a kid, I loved Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And I lived in Boston, of course, or the suburbs of Boston. So Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin,
Mhm,
The
mhm.
Who, you know, um, that's not a metal band, but man, they sure taught us a lot of lessons.
There was an interview with Pete Townsend, and he even flags himself as like the originator of the first truly heavy riff, like before the Kinks, before, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
how can you argue with that, right?
it's hard to. There's a good argument there. You really got me. I would say. I mean that's a pretty early heavy riff, right?
Yeah.
The whole story of I'm talking about the Kinks now, of course, of the torn speaker and just having that just raunchy sound coming out of a little amplifier. It sounds broken, and the guys in the band going like, yeah, 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 let's keep it. Sounds great.
Now, where did the punk come in then?
Um, I was in high school when punk sort of came in, and we started hearing it on the radio in Lexington, which is just outside of Boston. There's a lot of good college radio stations, like 8 to 10 good college radio stations. Because as you know, Boston's just bristling with colleges and universities, and every
Well,
one of them's got a great radio station, or at least in those days there were great radio stations. There
sure.
still are a few.
Right.
So we would hear all this new music, and it was pretty clear when punk came along. If you liked aggressive, loud sounds, like that was worth exploring.
Now, as I said, I call this the rapid fire after the famous British Steel. So just wacky left field questions to kind of keep it loose. Were you much of a Priest fan?
Not so much, but I didn't. What happened was I really got deeply into punk around the time that metal was sort of mushrooming.
Yeah, right.
Um, I went from being a progressive rock and hard rock fan to to being a punk rock fan. And Van Halen was starting up then, and they had a lot of songs on the radio.
Speaking of, you really got me.
Yeah,
Right?
but
I came in twice.
yeah, did. Um, but as like a 17, 18-year-old, I was more drawn to the stranger sounding things. And there was a lot of weird music coming out around then. Um, so I, I guess Priest was not really a big influence for me at the time.
So when was the moment you actually looked in the mirror and you said, I think I want to do this thing called music for my livelihood, for my life. I'm gonna go for it.
Man, all I can ever remember from being a little kid was loving the radio and learning to play instruments, just picking everything up. I knew that I wanted to be a bass player from a pretty young age. Like I think by the time I was 8 or 9, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn the bass.
And what did your parents, your folks say about these decisions?
They were supportive as far as being a musician, and they signed me up for guitar lessons. Um, but the guitar, I think I was 6. I really wanted to learn how to play guitar, and they said, "Okay, we'll sign you up for lessons." And they bought me a guitar. And when I opened the case, it was a classical guitar, an acoustic classical guitar with nylon strings. I was too little to know the difference, but what I really wanted to learn was a guitar with steel strings,
Okay.
you know. So, but I think that's part of why I became a bass player. I learned classical guitar from the age of maybe 6 to 10 or 11, and classical guitar, you're mostly playing one string at a time. There's some chords, but you don't strum as much as pluck. So it's a
Right.
natural. If you learn classical guitar, it's picking up a bass is a natural progression. They were into that. They did not want me to. They thought I was crazy if to think that I could make a living as a rock musician.
Is there an actual instrument right now you're trying to learn or conquer, or an instrument that you'd like to try to?
A new instrument?
Yeah.
Oh, I tried a few, and I'm back to just picking up the bass, and I'm still learning things on the bass. So yeah, I'm a bass player, Tim. I've tried to play other instruments. I tried to play the tuba at one point,
Okay.
trumpet, tuba, trombone. But damn, those instruments are hard and they're loud. Electric bass can be incredibly loud, but you can also just sit on the couch with the thing not plugged in and
Yeah.
fool around.
Still work your fingers, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Who's your rock star?
Ooh, well, my rock star. I think I've got. I mean, there are so many. As a kid, I think it was Roger Glover, a Deep Purple bassist. Such a cool. He's a great rock star. And an incredible bass player. Um, but how about Bon Scott?
Hmm.
Is there a better rock star than Bon Scott?
One of my other rapid fire questions, and usually people answer this, is like you're at a bar and there's an empty stool. Who would you like to show up right on that stool? And most of the people say Bon Scott,
Yeah, yeah,
and he's buying the first drink.
yeah, yeah. I think it'd be kind of fun, maybe like Keith Moon to sit on that stool if he's capable of sitting. I don't. You probably would just kind of vibrate.
Yeah, he's
That
just
would
like
be,
Animal from the Muppets, right?
yeah.
Just bouncing around.
Iggy Pop, that would be kind of fun.
I've got on my fun little list here, because this actually probably applies to you more than anyone else. What is your favorite sandwich? And when people come to your bakery, what's like, you got to go to the bakery to get this? What's the this?
So we make a bread called an olive branch. And that's not cynical at all. I just want to say an olive branch is a peace offering. And it's not meant ironically. And so this is like a baguette with a lot of Kalamata olives rolled into it. It's just full of olives. If you break it apart, they fall out.
Wow.
Um, I mean, it can also be used as a weapon, a baguette. I think in French, baguette actually means like bat to pummel someone with.
Okay.
So we make an olive branch that can also be used as a weapon. And yeah, you can make a great sandwich with that. Put anything in there, some smoked meat or cream cheese.
Now, I love this. I can't believe, because I grew up buying records like you, and how it's now saving the business for some bands. What was your first record
Easy.
you bought? What was the first vinyl record that you bought?
Woo! It was a 45. Um, Little Willie by Sweet.
Ah, okay.
Great song.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Very nice. Ever asked for an autograph?
Um, have I ever no, but a friend of mine asked Lee Ving, who's the singer from Fear,
Yep. Yep.
for his autograph for me. Does that count?
Yeah. 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 For sure.
I got Lee's autograph.
Did you ever hear it? I think it's called MD45 when Mustaine teamed up with Lee Ving on a
What a
project called
combination.
MD45.
Jeez. Yeah, that's a lot of testosterone.
Exactly. Aside from your passport and your phone, what do you always need to travel with?
A pencil. A bass guitar.
Okay.
Members of the family.
What is next to conquer? Actually, what was your first concert before I wrap things up here? What was your first concert?
First concert, I saw a band called Ice at Lexington High School, um, and just a local cover band. This was maybe 1976, 77, and they came out. The bass player had a Rickenbacker, and it just blew my mind. The whole thing blew my mind. I think they were a trio. Um, they opened with Queen's they opened with a Queen song, and you know, if we were to see that band today, we'd probably be like, ah, whatever. But they just blew my mind.
Right. Now, fans of Mexican Ape-Lord are probably wondering, am I ever going to see these guys live before I die?
Yeah, that's a good question. Uh, I don't know. We
Especially when
really,
we see each other once every 2 years.
yeah, it's difficult right now because
Yeah, no,
we're
I get it. I'm just
but,
taking the piss out of you, but it must be difficult, especially now.
right now, especially. But it could happen. We'll see. It's definitely not off the table.
What is fueling the music? Is it we're gonna hear another record? It's like you just need to put out these records. Tony, it was really funny. You guys have been hugely supportive of BraveWords, and it's just you got to just get this record out, and we're just gonna probably just put out another record. Whatever. This is what you do, right? It's what I do.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the best thing in life is writing songs. And so if you got to do something with that stuff, you got to put it out. There's no sense in just having it pile up.
Right.
Um, and the only way to finish a song, to bring it to its real conclusion, is to know that people will hear it. Right now, we're actually remixing the first album, The Late Heavy Bombardment. It's the 10th anniversary this year of that
Wow.
coming. So Tony is working on a remix of that, and I'm not sure when that'll be coming out, but sometime in the next, several months. And we're not doing any writing at the moment. There's a video for one of the songs on the new record, Highway 88. There's going to be a video for Highway 88 sometime, maybe the end of the summer.
Yeah, right. Okay. Okay.
Look for that.
Dude, I can't thank you enough. Can I just give you one little bit of personal information, especially it's not snowing now in July in Canada. I'm an avid skater and I'm an avid cyclist. So when I'm cycling, I need to have like my 2 hour soundtrack of the most driving music. Usually it's Slayer, but honestly, on my I listen to so much Mexican Ape-Lord
Oh,
on,
wow.
and it's even some of the mellow stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, this is just making me so angry. I love it.
Oh,
So my point is, it's really truly inspiring. So thank you
thank you.
so much.
Oh
Really,
man, thank
seriously.
you. That is wonderful to hear. and just don't wipe out while listening to Mexican Ape-Lord. Keep it together.
Great way it ended.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you,
Happy
dude.
Canada Day.
Thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure. Okay, you take care of yourself and stay in touch. Okay.
Absolutely, will do.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Cheers, man. Thank you.